A Current Affair, weekdays at 4 on Channel 5.
President Reagan arriving late today in New Orleans for the Republican convention for George Bush's nomination and his own last triumphant hurrah. This is the CBS Evening News. Susan Spencer reporting tonight from our convention headquarters in New Orleans. Good evening. The president hit the ground swinging, revving up the Republicans gathered here with an enthusiastic blast at the Democratic ticket. White House correspondent Bill Plant has details.
President Reagan arrived in New Orleans to a triumphant welcome this afternoon, borne in a Mardi Gras-style procession through a sea of Republican nostalgia. Even though this is the beginning of the end of his political career, Mr. Reagan seems intent on going out fighting. Setting the likely tone of this convention, the president delivered a bristling political attack, deliberately using words and images already previewed by George Bush to define Michael Dukakis.
The stealth candidacy has to come out from cover. It's time to talk issues, to use the dreaded L word, to say the policies of our opposition and the congressional leadership of his party are liberal, liberal, liberal.
The president reached out to the so-called Reagan Democrats, the blue-collar ethnic voters who helped to elect him in 1980 and 84.
A once proud party of hope and affirmation has become dominated at the top by strident liberalism and negativism. The party of yes has become the party of no.
In this crowd of fervent supporters, a couple of protest signs didn't last long. Finally, there was an impassioned appeal from the president to secure the future by continuing his Reagan revolution.
This is what is now at stake. We must hold to this moment of hope. And I tell you with every ounce of energy and every fiber of my being, only electing George Bush president of the United States can accomplish that.
What we saw here today shows clearly how reluctant these Republicans are to let Ronald Reagan go. That rally was in fact full of signs which read Reagan for Veep in '88. But tomorrow night he has to bid the convention farewell and pass the torch. And sources tell us the speech will be an intensely personal accounting of his presidency and the same kind of appeal that we saw today to continue his policies in the future. Susan?
Thank you, Bill Plant. Tonight, the stragglers are still arriving. Delegates, politicians, stars, all convinced that New Orleans this week is the place to be. Jerry Bowen reports on the final preparations.
The last of the 5,000 or so delegates and alternates are arriving now to hear Ronald Reagan's farewell, to learn of George Bush's mystery running mate, all the while getting a hearty New Orleans greeting from volunteers intent on making visitors forget the heat and humidity that drape this city. Even the lone and small protest of the day was done New Orleans style, boosters of the Equal Rights Amendment making their point with a parade and music, of course. There was another parade of sorts, the vice presidential possibilities, some of the long shots and the hot shots, getting a taste of Crescent City hospitality. And there were parties. They started with Sunday brunch and by some accounts won't end till the last weary delegate or reporter drags out of town next Friday. Meanwhile, there's work to be done in this convention city. A couple hundred reporters were given a last-minute tour of the Superdome, where the official business begins in earnest tomorrow. And there's the business of making money. T-shirts, coffee mugs, campaign buttons, everything a loyal Republican could want. Almost. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, New Orleans.
The convention's big suspense, of course, is who will George Bush pick as his running mate. Bush is keeping his lips sealed, but as Jacqueline Adams reports, that has not stopped either the leaks or the auditions.
With an assist from his campaign chairman, George Bush spent the day focusing on the biggest question of this convention week, his selection of a running mate.
The vice president knows all these people. He's not running them through any sort of a parade or competition gong show type approach.
But most of the candidates said to be on Bush's short list staged their own gong show today, parading before the delegates in New Orleans and strutting their stuff in television interviews. Senate Minority Leader Bob Dole tried to water down the attacks he made on Bush during the primaries, attacks the Democrats are itching to replay.
And I was trying to talk about what I perceived as probably weaknesses. Now, since I lost Super Tuesday and Bush won very handily, I've learned a lot about his strengths that I hadn't focused on before.
The Conservatives' favorites, New York Congressman Jack Kemp and Indiana Senator Dan Quayle, practiced their best shots against the Democrats.
I and others, whether I'm the nominee or not, will remind people what a Dukakis, Carter, Mondale, McGovern party would bring to America.
I think economic growth and peace through strength are two great issues in 1988, and the party must reach out to ghetto and barrio and people who heretofore had not thought of themselves as Republican.
But the man touted as Bush's favorite, Wyoming Senator Alan Simpson, had an attack of candor that could be fatal on the campaign trail, predicting that the next president, Republican or Democrat, will have to raise taxes.
Good Lord, somebody's going to have to do something in that area or we'll be off the wall.
Neither Bush's aides nor even his children claim to know who the vice president currently is leaning toward. Weeks ago, Bush decided to keep his vice presidential choice secret to add suspense and mystery to an otherwise routine convention. So far, his strategy is working. Jacqueline Adams, CBS News, Washington.
While the Republicans try to monopolize everyone's attention this week, what about the Democratic nominee? As Bill Whitaker reports, he is in no mood to let the Republicans get away with it.
On tranquil Cape Cod, Michael Dukakis and wife Kitty are resting up for a hectic week of campaigning, a break with tradition designed to steal some of the spotlight from the Republicans in New Orleans. Dukakis says he expects a drubbing from his rivals this week.
I think it's a losing policy. I think it's a losing campaign to do that.
Just the same, the drubbing has begun. Making the rounds in New Orleans is this comic book put out by Jerry Falwell, which depicts Dukakis as an ultra-liberal, pandering to women, blacks, and homosexuals. Dukakis says he's not going to respond to negative Republican attacks in kind. He says he'll respond instead by positively stressing his issues and his strengths.
And I think he has to a great extent, keep saying what he intends to do. I don't think he should get in the gutter with George Bush.
That's why the campaign has been emphasizing events like last week's, when he targeted the issues of drugs and the economy, sailing with drug agents in Jacksonville, Florida, and blasting the Reagan administration for the jump in the crime rate. Still, the campaign is quick to note that Dukakis is a scrapper, known for his political counterpunch.
If, again, things get out of hand and the response is necessary, you'll find Governor Dukakis quick and ready with it.
Some Democrats, fearing a further drop in the polls, are urging Dukakis to begin punching now. Waiting until after the Republican convention, they say, could be waiting too long. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Hyannis, Massachusetts.
And coming up next on the CBS Evening News, Soviet troops beat a deadline for withdrawing from Afghanistan. And later on Inside Sunday, Space Wars, now playing at your local supermarket.
I want a man with a slow hand. He's got a face that I love to touch.
Introducing the new Schick Ultrex Plus. Its pivoting head has a lubricating comfort strip and one-push cleaning to shave you smoother than ever.
A touch this easy makes me understand. When it comes to love, I want a slow
New Schick Ultrex Plus, the easy touch for the ultimate shave.
Good morning.
The day's looking new and bright.
It's Monday again.
And you're gonna start it right.
Traffic's tied up.
Cause there's Folgers for you that's decaffeinated too. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
A decaffeinated? And I'm waking up?
Nothing brightens your morning like Mountain Grown Folgers Decaffeinated. Mountain Grown coffee beans have more enticing aroma and richer flavor than any other kind.
Folgers so rich and good, the day starts like it should.
You know something? It's starting to look a lot better out there.
The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Decaffeinated.
Captain, this
This itchy rash is driving me crazy.
Why didn't you use the Cord-Aid?
Cord-Aid goes beneath the skin to actually heal itches and rashes.
You know, itches and rashes won't last if you use Cord-Aid first.
Roman Catholics and Protestants alike marched this weekend in Belfast, each group observing a date dear to its cause. Tom Fenton in London has our report.
Another tragic anniversary was marked in Northern Ireland today as several thousand Catholics marched through Belfast. They were commemorating the imposition in 1971 of imprisonment without trial, a policy the British eventually dropped after it provoked a furious outbreak of IRA violence. The Protestants of Northern Ireland are now calling for reimposition of internment. They do not seem to have learned much from their history, nor can they forget it. Yesterday, they turned out in their thousands to mark another anniversary of Protestant victory over the Catholics in 1688. Both sides are now caught up in the biggest upsurge of violence since the grisly days of the early 1970s. For the past 2 weeks, hardly a day has gone by without a terrorist attack, most of them by the IRA against British military targets. The aim is to force British troops out of Northern Ireland. At the Catholic rally in Belfast today, a leading pro-IRA politician applauded the gunmen and bombers.
They speak for us, and they speak with one voice. It's the only voice the British understand.
The aim of the new IRA campaign is to kill as many British soldiers as possible. By bringing the problem close to home, the IRA hopes to make a greater impact on British public opinion.
What they would like to do is to have the British public so sick of IRA violence, so sick of violence in Northern Ireland, violence in Europe, and violence in Britain as well, that they want the public to say to the government, we've had enough of this, please get out of Northern Ireland altogether.
Even before this latest campaign of violence, a public opinion poll showed that only 1 out of 4 people in mainland Britain wants Northern Ireland to remain part of the United Kingdom. But pulling out of Northern Ireland is the one solution that Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, like all of her predecessors, refuses to accept. Tom Fenton, CBS News, London.
Today also is an important date in the Arab world, and this helped spark the worst violence in months in Israel's occupied territories, most of it concentrated in Gaza. Bob Simon in Tel Aviv reports.
Palestinians in Gaza celebrated the Islamic New Year with circles of fire. Schoolgirls hurled stones at soldiers. The only movement in the Gaza Strip on this festive holiday was the movement of battle. Shops were closed, traffic paralyzed, except for military vehicles. Protesters tried to put a stop to that too. They littered the streets with nails. By weekend's end, 3 Gazans were dead, 22 wounded today alone. And for the first time in 5 months, the Army this afternoon clamped a complete curfew on the entire Gaza Strip. That means that 650,000 residents will be confined to their homes indefinitely. Defense Minister Rabin told Israel's cabinet this morning that this type of collective punishment has been yielding results, that there are far fewer Molotov cocktails thrown these days. Hours later, 6 Israelis were flown to a Tel Aviv hospital from Gaza after a Molotov cocktail was thrown in their car. 4 children were burned, including an 8-month-old baby, reported tonight to be in serious condition. The temperature in the territories has been rising ever since King Hussein announced that he was cutting ties with the West Bank. It's been kept at a low boil by daily reports that Yasser Arafat is trying to convince other PLO leaders to fill the vacuum by declaring a Palestinian government in exile. None of these potentially historic events would be so much as possible if 8 months ago some kids from Gaza hadn't started throwing stones at Israeli soldiers. The issue has been passed on to diplomats and statesmen, and the kids are where they always were, with their stones. Bob Simon, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
Post Fruit and Fiber presents new Cinnamon Apple Crisp, and a Fruit and Fiber cereal fanatic who never forgets our name.
Right, remember. Hey, this is new. Chunks of really crisp apple, cinnamon. It's fruit and...
Post Fruit and Fiber cereal introduces Cinnamon Apple Crisp with crisp, delicious apples, cinnamon, and high-fiber flakes.
Well, no wonder I forgot. This new taste is terrific.
New Cinnamon Apple Crisp Fruit and Fiber. Tastes so good, you forget the fiber.
It takes more than
years of training to make it to the Olympics. It takes a lot of support. And you can help support the Olympic dream. Because when you clip coupons for selected 3M products, 3M will make a contribution to the United States Olympic team. It's a way for you to help make an athlete's dream come true. Check your Sunday paper for this ad and look for these 3M products. 3M, supporting the dream.
Folks, for dentures that feel fresh as a morning breeze, try my Mint Fresh Polident. It's got a minty mouthwash ingredient, so it freshens up dentures as it cleans tough stains. Try Super Strength Polident Green, the mouth freshening clean. Ah.
Now for indigestion, gas, introducing new Extra Strength Malox Plus. It neutralizes more than any leading antacid and dissolves gas. Nobody does as much as new Extra Strength Malox Plus.
The Soviet commander in Afghanistan said today that Muslim rebels have seized a provincial capital, and he said Soviet troops will not help Afghan soldiers recapture it. He also claimed that half the Soviet troops in Afghanistan have now been withdrawn, ahead of schedule. Bill McLaughlin in Moscow reports.
Half the Soviet Union's estimated 100,000-man army in Afghanistan was already out by this weekend in advance of tomorrow's departure deadline. UN observers confirm the Russian withdrawal. Soviet TV continues to show grateful Afghans giving bouquets to departing soldiers, although many Soviet troops are on the receiving end of rebel attacks as they try to make it back to the border and a welcome home. The entire Russian army is supposed to be out of Afghanistan by February 15, 1989. Moscow is now trying to deal with some of the problems created by the Afghan war. Soviet veterans of the war bitterly complain they've been ignored, and this week there was a rock concert in their honor in the Soviet capital. Some Afghan vets turned up at the U.S. and Pakistani embassies here to ask for help in bringing home missing or captured soldiers left behind in Afghanistan. In Kabul, the communist puppet regime's president, Najibullah, is telling his people that the regime will survive the Soviet withdrawal and that the Soviet-trained Afghan troops will defeat the Muslim resistance fighters. But diplomatic sources here are increasingly convinced that Afghanistan will eventually end up partitioned into an independent Muslim South and a pro-communist North.
If the pro-Soviet Afghan regime can somehow manage to cling to power in the North, that could give the Soviet Union something it might need in the future, a protective buffer zone between Afghanistan's radical Muslims and the Soviet Union's own huge Muslim population. Bill McLaughlin, CBS News, Moscow.
Navy officials investigating last month's downing of an Iranian airliner by the cruiser Vincennes reportedly will recommend only mild disciplinary action against just one person, the operations officer. Today's Washington Post says the officer is blamed for misinterpreting radar and other data. Police in McLean, Virginia are investigating the apparent suicide this weekend of Ella Royston Udall, 59-year-old wife of veteran Arizona Congressman Morris Udall. And legendary Washington trial lawyer Edward Bennett Williams died this weekend of cancer. He was 68. Williams defended such diverse clients as Jimmy Hoffa and Joseph McCarthy. He used to own the Washington Redskins football team and was the current owner of baseball's Baltimore Orioles.
The answers to your long-distance questions are never more than a phone call away.
Just give me the dates, and don't worry, we'll solve it.
AT&T customer representatives are always ready to help you with information on bills, discounts, and the AT&T card. And you can call on their experience 24 hours a day.
Thanks. That's one less thing that I have to think about.
We're reaching further to bring your world closer. AT&T, the right choice.
Morning. What, no kiss?
Oh, sorry. Lips that touch sugar and preservatives will never touch mine.
Okay.
No. Oh, I want real commitment.
Nutri-Grain?
Mm-hmm.
New Kellogg's Nutri-Grain biscuits.
Biscuits?
Think positive.
Oh, no sugar added. No salt, no preservatives? I'm positive I'm going to hate this.
Introducing the only shredded wheat with no preservatives. Nutri-Grain biscuits.
Okay. Now let's talk commitment.
New Nutri-Grain biscuits.
On their vacation, they had everything planned. Everything except this. So don't carry cash. Carry American Express traveler's checks. Don't leave home without them.
Claude Akins. Love your Polygrip ads, but I use a powder adhesive for my dentures.
Then try this. New Super Polygrip Powder. One use holds up to 12 full hours. Get new Super Polygrip Powder with 12-hour holding power.
There are two main topics of conversation here in New Orleans. One, of course, is the convention, and the other is food. People are either eating it or talking about it. Tonight on Inside Sunday, we will talk about everyone's favorite subject, food. What Americans eat, when they eat it, and why. We begin with the good old-fashioned family dinner. Remember?
There are very special soups that kids remember.
In the old days, there was Mom, there were the kids, and there was the assumed proof that she loved them. Food and the traditional family meal.
Nothing says lovin' like something from the oven, and Pillsbury says it best.
Hey, Dana Gomez?
But the social scientists say the traditional family meal is on its way out. For one thing, in many households, everybody's working and nobody feels like cooking it.
What we may lose is that sense of affection, that sense of commitment, that sense of connection that eating together usually implies.
Good morning, welcome to McDonald's. To take your order, please.
This country is into eating as an exercise in efficiency. 40% of the food dollars spent eating out is spent in fast food restaurants. Forget leisurely get-togethers at the dining room table. Or should we?
I don't necessarily think we have to bring back the dining room table or the kitchen table or some kind of a furniture arrangement. That's not it. It's the human arrangement that we have to bring back.
But for busy families like the Eustaces, both of whom work, family life seems to hum right along without traditional meals.
I think we communicate. We don't communicate. I don't think we communicate at the table. I really don't. There's too much going on between the four boys. It's always get your elbows off the table, eat your vegetables, you know, hurry up, don't talk with your mouth full. And by the time we get through all that, it's just not, I would rather eat by myself.
These days, when more families have microwaves than have VCRs, very few people have time to mourn the demise of dinner in the dining room. It may be another strain on family ties, but it's reality.
I talk to my kids a lot in the car. I have to drive them everywhere.
But soon, even that could be a problem if what the food marketing experts predict comes true. Are you ready? Microwave ovens in your car. And a pantry in your trunk, no doubt. Anyway, about the choice of food down at the market. Turns out the selection is not entirely up to you. Lynn Brown looks at the competition for a seat on the aisle.
Most Americans spend more than $70 at the supermarket each week, choosing from about 25,000 products.
That's twice as many as a decade ago. And that may explain why, despite the bright lights and soft music, there's a battle going on here, a battle for shelf space.
A Frookie is a different cookie. It is sweetened with fruit.
Richard Worth thinks it tastes like a winner. But first, he'll have to convince supermarkets to buy into his dream. It's a long shot, and one product's success often means another's failure.
Something probably is going to have to come off the shelf to get it onto the shelf.
Of 10,000 new products introduced last year, only about 1,000 made it to the shelves. And success can have its price. More and more stores are charging steep fees to put unknown products on display.
It's simply a way to help the retailers cope with the tremendous cost that the manufacturers have imposed on us by this explosion of new product offerings.
It is incredible. You feel, I mean, you got two hands tied behind your back because this is a business that you buy into.
And just making it in the door is no guarantee.
I mean, what do we do with this product? We know that we want to be on TV.
That makes advertising vital, along with promotion and placing the product where it's sure to be seen.
Either the beginning of an aisle or at least the middle of a shelf, which is the customer's eye level. It's a toss-up, you know, if you like a person better than another, you might give him that shelf space.
But even if they get the shelf space, few stores give new products the benefit of the doubt. At best, Frookies has 6 months to strike it rich or strike out. Lynn Brown, CBS News, New York.
There is one old product people here and a lot of other places just love. It's been hot for more than a century. Eric Engberg found out where all the heat is coming from.
They like their food hot and spicy in Louisiana. And since the recipe was perfected 125 years ago, a sauce made only in Louisiana has been calling the world's taste buds to rigid, pungent attention.
Everybody loves Tabasco.
Tell you the truth, it's almost good enough to drink straight up.
Tabasco, every single drop of it, comes from Avery Island, part of Louisiana's Gulf Coast, where the red peppers, which give the sauce its bite, coexist with the gators and egrets of a wildlife refuge. The McElhenney Company, which owns the island and most everything on it, sends 240,000 bottles to all parts of the world each day. But company president Ned Simmons McElhenney, a strong Republican, sees geopolitical implications in the Tabasco sales pattern.
Places that use Tabasco are the places with strong Western economies, strong middle class.
Ned is the fourth generation McElhenney to be boss, and the family tradition runs deeply through the company.
My grandfather raised the peppers here, and my dad worked here, my mother worked here. I've got a sister that works here, and my 3 kids work here.
They start with a special Tabasco pepper, grind it into a mash, and age it for 3 years.
Tabasco is like fine wines or whiskeys, aging in wooden kegs.
Usually, the critical job of deciding which kegs are worthy of the Tabasco name is performed by a member of the McElhenney family. Next stop, big mixing bowls.
And then we mix the mash inside of these 2,000-gallon vats and add vinegar and mix it for 4 weeks and then strain it.
After bottling, the sauce goes to its loyal customers, including George Bush, who is running for president, and J.B. Chu from Singapore, who is not. Eric Engberg, CBS News, New Orleans.
And we'll be keeping track of Tabasco and all the other hot political developments here throughout the coming week. That's the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather will be here tomorrow, and later on tonight, Bill Plant with the CBS Sunday Night News. I'm Susan Spencer in New Orleans. Have a good evening.
If I don't get a good start in the morning, I might feel peaked. I hate that.
Wheaties, 100% whole wheat, naturally low in sugar. That's champion nutrition.
What the big boys eat.
The making of freeze-dried Taster's Choice coffee. Search the world for the finest coffee beans. Grind them. And at the peak of freshness, brew the richest, most aromatic coffee you can brew. Then freeze it. Freeze-drying locks in the fresh brewed aroma and flavor until you release it. For a truly superior cup of coffee, the choice for taste is Taster's Choice.
Taste it.
Now, a revolution in blade shaving from Remington, the new Remington Electro Blade, with vibrating blades for a close, smooth, comfortable shave. Safe, immersible, and cordless. The new Remington Electro Blade vibrating blade system.
For all your pet means to you, shouldn't you give him and your family protection against fleas and ticks? You can with a 2-in-1 flea and tick collar from Hearts, the collar that's been protecting your pet for years. And the Hearts 2-in-1 collar kills fleas and ticks on your dog or cat for up to 5 months. It even works when wet. So get the collar that really works, because no pet should go anywhere without Hearts protection. The Hearts 2-in-1 collar, protection against fleas and ticks.
Campaign 88 heats up as the Republican convention comes to New Orleans. Join Kathleen Sullivan and Harry Smith for full coverage this week on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.